insiders would be hit. Terrorism lang yan, panakot, in other words. But this time, iba
strategy. Pero kung when there's human life, when it's real,
hindi na terrorism, actual
murder.
Massacre na yun or whatever. Murder, whatever.
Murder. Ganun ang labas niyan.
Oh,
di ba? Murder yan. Because contemplated
Yes.
Intentional.
Yes.
For specific strategy. So, okay, let's move on. Muna tayo sa terrorism. Let's go to the Supreme Court. Because after all, you are a man of the law.
Yes.
Abogado po kayo eh. Itong plagiarism, maganda itong story, ito nangyayari. It's still developing. We have on November 20, the resolution being given UP, the University of the Philippines, the law students and the 37 that signed whatever note that they call that, a verbatim or whatever, to the Supreme Court came back and said, hey guys, give us reason, show us cause on why we shouldn't penalize you. Now, tama bang UP in saying plagiarism? Because it was word for word.
Unahin natin abogado bago ako.
Ako, akalito yan. Sige.
Well, unang-una, that has been the subject of debate insofar as the legal circle is concerned. And of course, most lawyers are sympathetic to the plight of the UP professors. Because in this case, the Supreme Court is the one being accused, and yet at the same time, it will be the accused, the Supreme Court, who shall determine as to whether or not there would be guilt or proper action to be made against those persons who are accusing the Supreme Court. But unfortunately, that is the structure insofar as our legal system is concerned. Practically, wala tayong magagawa sa Supreme Court. As a matter of fact, there has been so many issues. The executive, there are times that the president is questioning the decisions of the Supreme Court.
Yes, it's
even the House is questioning the action of the Supreme Court insofar as the impeachment complaint is concerned. Unfortunately, under our Constitution, the Supreme Court is given the explicit power of judicial review to act on actions made by the executive or by the legislature if there would be abuse of discretion. And normally, the only remedy in the event that the Supreme Court would abuse its powers would be only to file impeachment complaint against the justices of the Supreme Court.
Highly impossible kasi korte absolute. But what happens, hang on, don't we have a democracy, freedom of expression? Have we taken that away from our liberties? I mean, we do have a democracy, correct me, Congressman?
Yes, totoo yan.
Diba? Freedom of expression.
We have freedom of expression, freedom of the press, freedom of thought. Unfortunately, it will be the Supreme Court in the final analysis as the final arbiter whether or not this freedom has been properly exercised or has been abused.
That's as a lawyer or that is as a congressman?
As a lawyer, as a congressman, as a Filipino. That is our political structure.
Sabagay, if we don't follow the law, then we'll be reduced to anarchy, we'll be reduced to animals, miski pa paano.
Yes. As a matter of fact, there has been cases which are very unpopular, and unpopular decisions were made by the Supreme Court. Notwithstanding those decisions made by the Supreme Court were unpopular, nonetheless, ultimately, we have to follow those decisions.
Kaya nga, Korte Supreme. Doktor?
Well, we have the freedom embraced in the 23 provisions of the Bill of Rights.
Abogado eh, oh. Alam niya,
iba.
Section 23 of Article 3.
Yes, Dr. Grego. Sige, Doktor.
Well, we have all these rights. Yet, we cannot grab the right of a person that has already expressed that particular decision in this case by copying, paragraphing, paraphrasing, paragraphing, including the punctuation marks, because that is already a property of the intellect of the person who made that.
Plagiarism.
Yes.
No, infringement. Plagiarism is vague or generic.
Okay.
We call it infringement of an intellectual property.
I agree.
Yes.
Who should be the arbiter here? Hindi naman pwede, sila na naman, because they're the ones that are They are the victim. They are the... Sila yung nagkakamali. Sila magja-judge sa kanila.
This is now the case wherein Mayor Arsenio Lacson called Judge Montesa. Was it Montesa? He said, that
hindi abogado si Frank.
That decision, your decision, Judge, is stupid. And then Montesa reacted by filing a case against Mayor Lacson. Again, the Supreme Court also said, what was said as stupid was the decision, not the person. No. You remember that? It was the decision that was branded as stupid, but not the person
he got away with it.
Who wrote the decision. Yes, Lacson yun eh. He was mayor of Manila at the time.
Pero then, natalo Korte Suprema. So that's what you're saying.
Hindi. Nanalo si Lacson. Talo si Montesa.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to take a short break. But before we do, my last point just on the issue of plagiarism. I think maybe intellectual property, which is becoming more and more evident and more relevant in our country. After all, this is the one single weapon America has all throughout the world and most first world countries. Nevertheless, the word is intellectual property. Who should be the arbiter in this case? Well, we do have a bureau. It's called Intellectual Property Philippines. They're being very quiet about it. Maybe they should sit down and lay down the rule. After all, it is run by most legal people, rather than separating the victim, because in this case, the one who's arbitrating is actually the one that is being charged. So parang mali ata is the ruler, the judge, and the executioner all at the same time. That's my 2 points. Stay with us. We'll be right back, and we still have to go to the generic term, MISLANG. Hello, my name's Harrington Botco. We're back in this program, Politics Today. We have Dr. Frank Grego together with us, and our very special guest, we have Congressman P.D. Barzaga. The issues we've been discussing, as you will see on the titles below right there. Plagiarism, let me see, what else does it say there? Plagiarism, terrorism, and finally the word mislang. Let's go to that issue. Mukhang hot issue yan eh, but it's becoming, every time kung makinig ako ng radyo ngayon, lahat ng radyo, miski anong stasyon sa AM, nako, lahat sila, binibugbog talaga ito si Miss Lang. Pero believe ako, they will not take her out. Neither her boss, si Karandang, ano? Mali bang nangyari dyan? Obvious na, no? Kung mali, bakit hindi, you know, when you make a mistake, if I'm not mistaken, when you wish or want redemption, there has to be retribution first. There has to be some act of correction. Correct me if I'm wrong. In this case, you don't wipe it under the rug and say it's a non-issue, and we go forward. What do we do with this very rude, para sa akin, bastos, di ba? Okay, the wine sucks. That's how it started. Di ba? What do we do with Ms. Lang? What do we do with the government and the president that doesn't care to think about anything about it and say it's nothing? Parang mali, di ba? What should we do?
Purihin si Ms. Lang. Yes. He was exercising his freedom of expression.
So as long as it doesn't involve the Supreme Court, we can go and exercise our expression, our freedoms. So our democracy is considered to be only make considerations, di ba? Our propensity to accept our freedoms have certain limitations and guidelines.
Yes, but in this case,
I'm doing double talk here. Okay?
In this
I'm being
case,
sarcastic.
In this case, Ms. Lang was criticizing the wine of the Vietnamese people.
No, also not only that, the poor looks of the Vietnamese, that they're ugly, and the fact that should you cross the street, you will die because of the heavy traffic of the motorcycles.
We should give him an award.
Ms. Lang.
Yes.
You will
how
need
many of
we have viewers that are watching us, they're trying to understand why.
How many of us have called the black Americans as negros, niggers? We say that. We do that. They have been protesting.
No, I don't. I call them African Americans.
This time, but before the series of protests by the black Americans, that they should be treated in accordance with the International Declaration of Human Rights, that regardless of the color, religion, or creed, they should be treated as if they are also white.
So freedom of expression, freedom of thought, because it's a real personal critique. What about protocol? Para ka nag-imbita ng tao sa bahay mo. Pagpasok sa loob ng bahay mo na, Pinasok mo, pinupo mo, pinakain mo. At sinabi siya, ang pangit ng pagkain mo.